We're going to do something a little different today. So we've done readings every week, and we started in January with a lot of civics, and we went over the three branches of government. And then for a while we've been doing history, and I try to tie in civics, government kind of questions as well with the history. Thomas, thank you for joining us. Thank you. Do you have a microphone?
Okay, good morning. Thank you
All right,
for
Thomas. Yeah, I think this is your first time joining me in the social studies class. Is that right? Thomas, is this your
yeah.
first time?
No, first time this class, yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. Great. Um, well, I was just saying to the other students, looks like there's 4 students logged in. Um, I try to focus just on social studies in general, on history, and find a balance between studying history and the civics. Um, Keeping it general, we can zoom in on specific things, but always trying to put them in the context of United States history and even world history a little bit, um, to see to prepare you, number one, for the GED the GED social studies test, because most people are preparing for that. We've mentioned along the way, and Nadia, you've brought up the questions for the citizenship, the naturalization test for when people come to America, want to become citizens, and want to take the test. There's 100 questions that you can study for. So today I thought we'd do something a little different, and we're going to just kind of talk our way through those questions. Maybe we'll get through all 100, maybe not. So I want everybody, you can have yourself muted, but have that button ready to answer some questions. Like let's really talk through these things. And so I'm sure some people are going to be super knowledgeable and other people less so. But if you don't know something, don't be embarrassed. Ask a question. We'll just kind of go through quite a lot of different topics today, just for something different to do. Okay. Again, don't feel embarrassed. My thing is, if you have a question, if you are wondering something, normally I bet you somebody else is wondering that same thing. You're probably not alone. So go ahead, ask questions. If you know something, you can proudly answer that question. We're just going to go through the questions. They're grouped, okay, by different topics. So the question, the quiz that you take is called the civics test of the naturalization test. Okay, the process of becoming a citizen, and there's several steps in that process. But the one of the things that you do is you take this quiz, and it's given verbally in an interview, and they ask you up to 10 questions, and you have to get 6 right. So it's not like it's a huge test that's going to take you hours and hours if you go to become a citizen. But they give you 10 chances, 10 questions to get 6 right. Okay, not too hard, but some people do have to study this kind of stuff. And they pull the questions from a specific list of 100 questions. And these questions have not changed in a long time. They don't change much. And if you're ever in the position to do this, all it takes is a quick Google search to find this document that I'm looking at here. Actually, let me see, do I have that? Yeah. So I just Googled citizenship, I think I said US citizenship quiz questions or something. And they can give you, there's a list of 100. It's in English. They offer it in large print. And then you have Arabic, Chinese, Korean, Spanish, Tagalog, Vietnamese. Okay. So in all these different, you can download the questions in all these different languages. And then there's slightly different rule. It says if an applicant is age 65 or older and has been a permanent resident for at least 20 years, then you have a shorter list from those same 100 questions. I don't really know how many there are. Actually, let me see. Let's just take a look. How many questions would those people? 20 questions. Okay. So you have a list of just 20 if you're 65 or older in age and have been in the United States as a permanent resident for 20 years. Your list of possible questions are shorter. It's just these 20. Okay. These are really, so the goal is these are things that we want people to know if they are citizens. Okay. Um, Hopefully, if somebody it lives in America, is born in America, born an American citizen, goes through American schools, high school, graduates high school, hopefully they know these things. Hopefully they've, the hope is that every American citizen knows these basic things. This is pretty basic. Now, I dare say there's a lot of Americans that don't. Um, but what we're going to do, so here's a list of 100 questions. They're grouped by topic, American government. Let's look here. So quite a lot of those. American history, integrated civics. So that's kind of things related, okay, to America. And that's pretty much it. Okay. What we're going to do, I got these flashcards. Now everybody can see my screen, right? Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So we're going to go through and we'll just work as a team, okay? Maybe someday we'll do like an actual quiz, but we'll just work as a team and just talk our way through them, okay? And again, if you have any questions or you want me to elaborate or we can work as a group to expand our knowledge and discuss for a minute or two, just please don't hesitate to speak up, okay? Now, some of these things, especially the Constitution things, we've been talking an awful lot about the Constitution for the last couple of months. So hopefully some of these aren't too hard, okay? So these are the questions that you would be asked, 10 of these 100 questions, if you were to sit down to take, it's a long process, but to sit down to take the quiz, the interview for becoming a United States citizen. And here's the list that we were looking at. They have specific answers in mind. Now, you don't have to say these word for word, but that is what they're looking for. Okay. So we can chat through here. Cheryl, thank you for logging in. Do you have a microphone, Cheryl?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thanks for logging in. My name's Matt. We are in the social studies class here. We're doing something a little bit different today. Normally we do a reading about history or the Constitution or something and read and talk our way through it and ask questions. Today we're doing something different. We're going to look at the 100 questions that you can be asked when if somebody goes to become a United States citizen. Okay, so of course, not everybody is doing that. Most people aren't, but it's actually a good list of questions. So we're just going to go through and just talk our way through. A lot of them, I hope everybody knows, and of course, don't hesitate to ask if you're unsure about something. Okay, so everybody participating, don't be afraid to answer because I'm not gonna answer these. You guys are gonna answer these. Okay, so number one? What is the supreme law of the land?
The Constitution.
It's the United States Constitution. That law, the Constitution, it supersedes, it is above, and it has more authority than any other law. Okay. Okay. What does the Constitution do? This could be.
Sets up the government, defines the government, protects basic rights of Americans. Still remember.
Okay, Nadia, you're pretty good. So yeah, defines what the government is and protects rights of citizens. Sets up the government. Oh, that's exactly what she said. Sets up the government, defines the government, protects the basic rights of Americans. Okay. It's not, the Constitution is not really laws. You don't think of it as laws, like, you know, setting up a speed limit and, laws against crime. It is really, it's a blueprint for them as they 200 plus years ago made a new government. Okay. The idea of self-government is in the first three words of the Constitution. What are the first three words of the Constitution?
We the people.
We the people. We the people. We the people. And then the power to set up a government comes from the people. Okay. Now, think back historically. Where was the other place that back then, somebody might say power comes from? In America, as they made a brand new nation,
Bill of Rights.
well, the people said, or the writers said, the Constitution's power comes from the people. Let's say in England, not the Bill of Rights, but let's say in England, where did people say the power was?
Wasn't it like royalty?
In the royalty, in the king, right?
Yeah.
So think back historically, because the Constitution was written by people on a day for a certain reason. They were making a distinction. The power isn't in the king, the power is in the people. The people give their power to the government, to the president. Okay, the president has power because the people have given him that authority. Whereas the British would say the king, not so much at their time, but certainly before that, hundreds of years ago, people said the king is king because God made him the king, and he is special, and he must be the king, right? He's different than you and me because he's the king. And today, and in the American system, that's not how we view things. Okay, what is an amendment?
If they want to revise,
like a law.
if they want to revise a bill.
Yeah, Jasmine. Yeah, when they want to revise not a bill but the Constitution, right? So this is
right.
The Constitution.
The addition to the Constitution.
It could be revising, or it could be adding to. Yeah, it could be an addition. Okay. I'm missing the answers. A change to the Constitution or an addition to the Constitution. Okay, and some do one or two of the, one or the other of those. Okay, what do we call the first 10 amendments to the Constitution?
The Bill of Rights.
Right, the Bill of Rights. They're separate, but they were all passed as a group, the first 10 together, and we call it the Bill of Rights. And we've talked about those recently. What is one right or freedom from the First Amendment? What are some of the First Amendment rights?
The freedom of speech.
The freedom of religion.
Freedom of speech, freedom of religion.
Okay, freedom of weapon.
Freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, freedom to petition the government. Okay. Probably the first two are the ones we think about the most.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
When it says to petition the government, does that mean like when people are asking for like the signatures for certain activisms or changes that they want done?
It can be that. I mean, that's literally a petition. Sign a petition. And then sometimes that works, and it's even written into laws. Okay, well, if we have 100,000 people sign on to this petition, then we will change this. Because it shows that this is a very popular idea, whatever it might be. Or it's at the very basic level, it just means we as citizens have the right to speak up, complain about things, demand change, suggest change. So it can be a written petition, but really it's just the spirit of the idea is we have the right to, the government is the people. We are electing our representatives. And so we should be the ones, we the people should be the ones telling them what to do. It's our decision, and they are just doing our acts. So the right to petition the government means to complain, to say this isn't how Americans want it to go, whatever the topic might be. In freedom of assembly, it literally means to assemble in groups, because there's been many times in history and around the world where you're not allowed to assemble in groups. Now today, of course, this month is different, but I mean, we're talking like the government doesn't want big groups, because when a big group of people get together, they may try to overthrow the government, or get bad ideas about things. Okay. How many amendments does the Constitution have today?
Is it 27?
21 or
20,
27?
27. There's 27 amendments. I think the last one was like 1993 or something. So it's been a while. Okay. What did the Declaration of Independence do?
Separated our government from England.
Yeah. It announcit's our independence, declared.
It's from the Great
Anytime I
Britain.
click, do you guys hear that voice? Anytime I click on it, it's reading it to me. Maybe it's just in my headphones.
No, I can't hear anything
Okay.
but your voice.
We can't hear anything.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll share this link out with you later and you can check it out. When you click on it, it reads it to you, so it's kind of distracting. Yeah, they
You
declare.
can't change the options. Sorry.
I guess I could.
On the bottom left. There you go. Oh,
That must be like it automatically plays. Yeah, that's okay.
okay.
Yeah, it said that the United States is free from Great Britain. It was a specific, they were declaring their independence from Britain, because before that, what was this land? They weren't states. What was it?
We were the 13 colonies.
The colonies of Britain. Okay, we were British
Yeah.
colonies. So they needed to declare their independence. Okay, what are two rights in the Declaration of Independence?
Right to bear arms.
No, those are rights in the Constitution. Okay, now this
Another right.
is a tricky one.
I didn't even know that the Declaration of Independence had like.
Well, yeah, you don't really think of it, but once I say it, you're going to know.
It's not to give a roof for the army, I
No,
think.
it's not
Do
that.
we have a
Right?
right?
It's
Do
not
we
that.
have the right to separate ourselves?
How about to vote?
Well, not the right to vote. I guess you could. That's a good one. The right to separate, to declare your independence, to separate yourself from a tyrannical government. It's
Right. No,
the
and to like have our own government.
Well, true. That is definitely what they're saying. But they
That
list.
we all created equal.
No, that doesn't
Oh
come
yeah.
in yet. Although that's a good one too. The right to life, liberty, and the
Oh,
pursuit of
Oh, life,
happiness.
liberty, and pursuit of
pursuit
happiness.
of happiness.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. That's a tricky question.
It's always the obvious questions that you can't remember.
The Declaration of Independence. Okay, the Declaration of Independence comes before the Constitution, because they didn't have to write a constitution yet, because they didn't need a government yet. First thing you got to do is declare your independence. Of course, this is back in 1776, is the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. That's like step number one, is you have to declare your independence. So the Declaration of Independence, if you read it, and it's fairly, it's old-fashioned, but it's readable. It's a very broad document. It's very, it looks at the big picture. And the first couple of paragraphs are kind of all describing, like, where does government get its power? It gets its power from the people. The people, we could all be living without a government and we'd be like, just survival of the fittest, right? But we pull together, man pulls together and forms a government for our own safety. But we maintain the government cannot threaten our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So in a very basic, very broad sense, those are the rights. That is a tricky question. Those are the rights listed, the three rights listed in the Declaration of Independence. That's a tricky question. Okay, what is freedom of religion? Very, very basically, what does that mean?
You can practice any religion or not practice a religion at all.
Right, you can, yeah, well said. You can practice any religion or not practice a religion. Okay. The government, of course, can't tell you. In some countries, even now, they have state religions. They have official religions of a country. America has never had that, and according to the Constitution, we will never have that. Okay. Okay. What is the economic system in the United States?
The capitalism economy or market economy.
Right, a capitalist economy, market economy, which isn't exactly, I mean, we have there's certain names for it if you get specific. It's like a regulated market economy or something, because it's not a perfect, pure capitalist economy. In a capitalist economy, market economy, it means, okay, I open a shoe store. If nobody buys my shoes, then I go out of business, right? And I have to spend all my own money to open the store. But in America, there is government involvement in some decisions, right? The government now is, Donald Trump has declared certain wartime powers so that he can direct certain companies to make things like masks and ventilators and the PPE, the personal protective equipment that the nurses and doctors wear. The government can sometimes, and even under normal circumstances, tell companies to do something or not do something. You can't charge, like even now, there's laws that the grocery store, just because the bread shelf might be empty, which is kind of, not good, not fun to go to the grocery store and see every week. The bread shelf might be empty. That doesn't mean that they can start charging $50 for a loaf of bread, or like this toilet paper. I don't know if people are still going crazy with the toilet paper. There's a law. You're not allowed to mark up. It's called price gouging. You're not allowed to mark up the price of toilet paper and take advantage of that situation. Would people pay much more for toilet paper? Yeah, you could probably get people to pay more, but there's laws against it. So, and you wouldn't have that in a pure market economy. So we have a capitalist economy, a market economy, but it's not exactly pure. There is government involvement, which I think most people would say is healthy, and you can have too much government involvement, but it's you find that middle ground, that where the people's rights are protected, and our lives are benefited from. Okay, what does it mean? What is the rule of law?
No one is above the law. Everyone has to follow the law.
Yeah, everybody has to follow the law, including leaders, the government. No one is above the law. No one is outside of the law. Even police, there's rules that govern how the police behave. And the army can't just do whatever it wants, Everyone follows the law. And if you break the law, you will go to jail and go and have your day in court. Now, is America perfect? No. But the hope, the idea is that no one's above the law. Every person in America has to follow the law, no matter if they're, the president on down to you and me. Everybody has to follow the law. Okay, so that's the idea of rule of law. Okay, name one branch of the government. Let's see if we can name all three.
Executive, judicial, and legislative.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Okay. Now they could also take, to answer this question, we said legislative, executive, judicial. Very good. For legislative, you could also say Congress. For the executive branch, you might also say the president. For the judicial branch, they might say the courts or the Supreme Court. Okay, so they would accept those, but the three branches of government we call the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. Okay, those are the three parts of the government laid out in the Constitution. What stops one branch of government from becoming too powerful? What did they build into the Constitution?
Checks and balances.
Checks and
Yeah, checks
balances.
and balances.
Okay, checks and balances. There's another term, talks about powers. Let's see if they have it written down.
Separation of powers.
Separation of powers. Checks and same thing. Checks and balances, separation of powers. Some powers are given to Congress, some powers are given to the president, some powers are given to the court system and the Supreme Court. And there's the checks and balances, right? Like Congress writes the laws and passes the laws, but the president and the executive branch also has to sign off on them. And then the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, can declare a law unconstitutional. So they're all, balancing each other out. So that no, and the question was, so that no one branch of government becomes too powerful. Okay, who is in charge of the executive branch?
The president.
The president.
Right?
Yeah, the president is the executive head of the executive branch. Who makes federal laws?
Congress.
The Congress.
Congress, which is two parts, the Senate and the House of Representatives. Okay, or you could say the legislative branch. But yeah, Congress writes the laws. And I just said, what are the two parts of Congress?
The Senate and the House of Representatives.
Right, Senate and the House of Representatives. Okay, now we're going to get a little bit specific here. How many U.S. senators are there?
100.
Well, you could say 100, but you'd be close, but you'd be wrong.
No.
There's two for every state, right? So 100.
Yeah.
But why is it not 100? And I think
Doesn't it
this,
depend on like the size of the state?
no, that's something different.
Okay.
Okay, 100 is very close for senators. Now, I haven't flipped over this card, so we'll see. Oh, darn, it says 100. Okay, okay. I was thinking 102. Does anybody know why I would say 102?
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. has two senators, I think. Okay, maybe I'm wrong here. I
I
think.
think because larger states have 3.
No,
No,
it's
yeah,
two.
the
The
House
Senate,
of Representatives
yeah,
allow
that's something different.
more representatives for
But
larger states.
the Senate has 100 senators, and I think, well, let's just Google this. Does Washington, D.C. have senators? Oh, I was wrong. I thought it had two senators, but they did not vote on things. Maybe I'm wrong. Apparently I am wrong. Okay, they have no representatives in the Senate. Does it have congressmen?
Maybe the smaller ones have 1.
Why am I
No,
thinking
no,
of that? No,
each state has
I
two.
guess I'm just wrong. Okay, so in the Senate, there's 100 senators, 2 for every state.
Right.
Now, this goes back, think historically, and this is an important thing to know a little bit about history. When they were writing the Constitution, okay, they have a new country, free from Britain. Okay, now what are we going to do? What kind of country are we going to have? How are we going to have this government? We don't want a king. That's the one thing they knew, no king. nothing even like a king. And so they said, well, we're going to have representative government. People are going to choose, elect the people to then go to the government and be in the government. Big states with lots of people said, hey, well, let's have it chosen by population. Okay, and that was called the New Jersey Plan. Was it the New Jersey Plan? Yeah, it was. Well, I don't know. Big states with lots of people back then in 1780s said, we want, since we have a lot of people, we want it to be based on population. That way, New York, which had a lot of people at the time and still does, would have more people sitting in the room than a little colony like Delaware that nobody, it's not a big deal. Okay, so let's make it by population. Delaware speaks up and says, no, 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 no. We need to have it equal. No matter if you have a lot of people or fewer people, we need it to be equal. Okay, like maybe 2 people from every colony, from every state. Okay, they couldn't decide, and they're in this room. They're writing a constitution, and they're like, okay, how are we going to have a Congress? Is it going to be based on population, and the more people you have, the more representatives you have, or is it going to be based? It's just one, a couple certain number per state. They compromised. They said, hey, let's do both. We'll have 2 houses of Congress. One will be the Senate, and it'll have two senators from every state, period. 2. Everybody, 2. The other one will be the House of Representatives. So let's see if that's our next. Well, that's not our next question, but we'll get there. So the House of Representatives will be based on population. So a big state like California today has 53 representatives because there's a bazillion people. 1 out of 8 Americans lives in California. There's a ton of people in California. Okay, they have 53 representatives. Little Wyoming, that has like literally 500,000 people in the entire state, has, I think, 1 representative. 1 versus 55. So, that's the House of Representatives. So we have both. And that was called the Virginia Plan, because the people, the guys from Virginia there said, hey, let's compromise. Let's do both. And so that's how we have 2 houses of Congress. Senators, there's 2 per state. There's 100. Okay. Next question: how we elect a U.S. senator for how many years?
6.
6 years.
A senator is elected and serves for 6 years. Okay. What is one of your state's U.S. senators now? Can anybody name?
I have the thing where it's the rdp.actionrunners.org.
Well, yeah,
I
there's
don't
different
remember.
websites.
I could Google it.
Who is my senator? Okay, so U.S. senators, Senate.gov. I thought there was a way. There's usually a pretty quick way. Actually, yeah, if we just Google PA,
Pennsylvania,
Google
Bob
will do
Casey.
it for us. Bob Casey
Yeah, Bob Case.
Bob Casey
Yeah.
Jr. and Pat
Pat
Toomey.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I know Bob Casey.
And those are our 2 U.S. senators in Washington, D.C. right now. I mean, I don't know if they're in D.C. today, but those are our 2 senators in the United States Senate. Pretty powerful. To be a United States senator, that's a pretty big deal. Okay. Now, Bob Casey was elected in 2007. Well, okay, 7. He would have entered office in 2008. 8 plus 6 years is 14. So he's up for re-election. His seat is up for re-election this year. So this fall, November, across Pennsylvania, we will be voting on one of these 2 Senate seats. Pat Toomey is still, not up for re-election because they stagger them. So not every senator is reelected all at the same time. But one of our Senate seats will be up for election in November. Okay. Okay, the House of Representatives has how many voting members?
435.
It is 435. Okay, now it wasn't always 435. When they started back in 1789, when the Constitution was passed, I don't know how many, they did it by, I don't know, just for example, I'm not sure. But they said, okay, every state will have one representative for every 100,000 people in population. Okay, I don't know if that was the number, but let's just say, for example, okay, every state has one representative for every 100,000 people you have. Now, if you have 1 million people in your state, that means your state has 10 representatives. If you only have 200,000 people in your state, you're only going to have 2 representatives. Okay, and as people have babies and immigrate into the United States, immigrants today, most of our population growth, well, I can't say, I don't know, of how much of our population growth in the United States is due to people having babies or due to immigration. I don't know. But I know throughout American history, immigration has been a huge boost to population. Okay, it's not just everybody's having more babies and those babies are Americans, when they're born. Immigration is a huge part of American history. So anyway, as population grows, every state gets more people, so every state gets more representatives. At some point, they said, okay, we can't keep going this way, right? You want to have a House of Representatives, you can't have 2,000 people in the House of Representatives. So we got to stop it somewhere. So what they did was they capped it. I forget. Now this was a constitutional amendment. Let's Google let's Google something. Which amendment limits? Let's see. Let's see if I can get my answer. No, I'm not. I don't know. Too hard to find. Okay. At some point, they said, okay, we got to change the rules. So they stopped it while the number was 435. Okay. They froze. They put a cap on the number of representatives. We will never have more than 435 representatives in the United States, even if we double our national population. Okay. Now what happens is, and this is the reason that our every 10-year census is so important, it may change depending on where people are moving to around the country, state to state. Okay. Let's say, we do the census this year and America has, or Pennsylvania, let's say, has the identical number of Pennsylvanians as 10 years ago. But every other state has gone up. Their population has gone up. That means Pennsylvania, and let's say today we have 22, I think we have 21 or 22 representatives in the House of Representatives. Well, if every other state's population has gone up, but Pennsylvania has stayed the same, that means we are going to get less, and one or two of our representatives are going to be given to some other state that's their population has grown. Okay, so the number of House of Representatives is frozen at 435, but they're going to shift around depending on the population. Okay, and I've seen like good maps that really explain that well, but it's frozen at 435. Okay, and those people are elected for how many years, House of Representatives?
8?
No, not 8 years. You're thinking of something else with 8 years.
Is it 2?
Two. The House, yeah. The U.S. House of Representatives is for 2 years, which means every 2-year election cycle, they are trying to get reelected. Okay. The purpose of that, anybody know what the goal, why would they make that? The Senate is elected for 6 years. The president is elected for a term of 4 years. Representatives are for 2 years. What's the purpose of that?
Is it because of the amount of representatives we have?
Well, not necessarily. If
Is it because they have to they're more accountable to the people that they have been voted by?
exactly. Good, Tolulope. Thank you. It's if I'm elected, you know, to go to Washington D.C. for the state of for a part of the state of Pennsylvania, and I know that in 2 years my name's going to be on a ballot again, and 2 years after that I'm going to be up for election again and again and again if I keep getting elected. I'm going to want to be very well informed of what my Pennsylvania people want, right? I'm not going to want to make them angry and do things that they don't want. So I'm going to listen to my voters very closely. Hopefully, hopefully. That's the goal of making it every 2 years. Yeah, accountability. If I do something dumb that my voters don't want, they're not going to reelect me. That's the way that's supposed to work. So that's why it's every 2 years. Now, the Senate is every 6 years for the exact opposite reason. If I'm a senator, then maybe I'm going to make some decisions that people in Pennsylvania don't like, but I can convince them that, hey, I did this for the best reasons. Here's my reasoning. Okay, so the senators are a little bit more removed from the voters, and that's for a purpose. Because the Senate and the House of Representatives do two different jobs. I mean, sometimes it seems like they're doing the same thing, but they have different roles. Okay, so that's why their terms that they're voted for are different. Okay, can you name your representative? Now, this is going to be different because we're all in different places. Who is my U.S. representative? Now, there's all these different ones, and these are the most famous that are showing up on Google here. But let's say find your representative, house.gov. I'm going to enter my zip code, which is Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, find my rep by my zip, and I am represented by John Joyce, a Republican, and this area here, this gray area, is all the places that vote for him, that he is represented by. Okay, pretty big area. Now let's say anybody else would like, I mean, totally up to you, but anybody else want to look up their zip code?
Yeah, I'm looking mine's up right now.
I'm trying now.
I would.
Okay. Do you want to give it to me, or are you comfortable giving it to me?
Yeah. 19126.
19126. You are represented by 2. Now, why would that be? Oh, okay. So that means in your zip code, some of the people, if you looked on a map, some people are
You
represented
have to take showers.
by District 2. Some people in that zip code are District 3. So it's not that you have 2 representatives, but it means depending on where you live in that zip code, you are represented by one of these 2 guys. Now it doesn't give a map for
So
that.
I got Daniel Meuser, something like that.
Yeah, okay. And I liked how you could see on the map, but that's not going to give it to me now. Okay, so yeah, house.gov, you can look up your representative and you can Um, let me see mine again if it gives me a way. Oops, well, I don't know what that did. In the Atlantic Ocean all of a sudden. Okay, that's weird. And it gives me a way to go to his website, gives me a way to email him. Okay. Now these people, your representative is somebody that, I mean, technically you know, maybe you've even met the person before. They should be pretty involved in your area. Now, that's a pretty big area for my representative to be involved in. It goes, you know, all the way from Indiana, Altoona, Chambersburg. It's a pretty big area. But if I have a question, if I have a concern, they are supposed to be pretty close to us as citizens. And so, you know, don't hesitate. I never have, but I mean, if you have a question, if something's going on in your town, or, you know, sometimes you can get them to come speak at your school, your kid's school or something. They want to be involved in the community, you know, if they're doing a good job. So that's our representatives. It's going to be different for all of us, but there is an easy way to figure it out. And I think that's kind of cool. Who does a U.S. Senator represent? What people in Pennsylvania does Pat Toomey and Bob Casey Jr. represent?
People of the state.
Yeah, the whole state, right? The whole state. They're two senators, but it's not like one of them does the western half and one of them does the eastern half. They have two senators for the entire state. Okay. Now, we already talked about this a little bit. Why do some states have more representatives than other states?
Because of the population of the
Yeah.
state.
Based on the population, the number of people they have. Some people have more, or some states have more people. Okay. The House of Representatives, oops, what was the question? Why do some states have more representatives? Now that means the House of Representatives. That's based on population. Okay. We elect a president for how many years?
Oh,
For four per term, but only 2 terms.
For 4 years, only 2 terms. That was a U.S. constitutional amendment because it was unlimited. Now,
Right.
interestingly, it had never been more than 2 from I don't know when George Washington, 1792, I think, was when Washington officially became our first president. And he stepped down after just 1 term. And then no one had served more than 2. Plenty were 2, lots were 1. And until, who was the first president to serve more than 2 terms? Actually was elected to 4 terms of office.
Franklin Roosevelt.
Franklin Roosevelt saw us through the Great Depression of the 1930s, through World War II, 1940s, was elected to a 4th term, but then died in office, I think maybe a month after taking office of his 4th term. He was elected 4 terms. Would have been 16 years, ended up being, 12 plus years. After that, they said, hey, you know what, maybe that's not a great idea. So they passed an amendment to limit it to 2 terms. And that was shortly after he died, I think the 40s or 50s, maybe the 50s, I'm not sure. That was a constitutional amendment, 22nd Amendment, limited to 2 terms in office. In what month do we vote for president?
November.
November. Anybody know why we vote on the second Tuesday in November?
Have no idea.
Mm-mm.
It's for reasons that don't really apply anymore.
Okay. Ooh, no.
They did it in November. If you're a farmer, why would you, if you're in a farming country, why would they vote in November?
Because harvest would be over.
It's off season. Yeah, it's off season.
Yeah, it's off season. Farmers aren't quite as busy. They did it the second Tuesday, I think thinking that like people could travel, because this is, very different traveling time back then.
Oh, you don't know what
And
rest
so they
stop
said,
is?
okay, well, let's make it Tuesday so people could like go to church on Sunday and then travel on Monday if they need to, vote on Tuesday and then go home. I'm At least that's my understanding, and I could be wrong. But I know it's November because the harvest is over. Farmers,
I
if,
don't think
if
anyone
half of the population is farmers, then
this looks
people
stupid.
aren't as busy. Okay. Yeah, I hope you know this. What's the
I
president
told T
now?
from the HIPAA warning.
What's the name of the president today?
Mr.
Donald Trump.
Donald J. Trump.
Donald J. Trump is the president today. Now, interestingly, let's talk about current events for a moment. Something happened just yesterday on the Democratic side. Of course, Donald Trump is a Republican. He will be the Republican nominee, barring some crazy unforeseen thing. He will be the Republican nominee. What happened yesterday?
Bernie
Bernie
Sanders dropped
Sanders
out of the
dropped
race,
out of the race.
Yeah, thank you.
and
Bernie
now it's
Sanders
just
drops out
Biden.
and leaves who then as the only person left standing on the Democrat side?
Biden.
Joe Biden.
Biden, who was Barack Obama's vice president for whatever year.
Right.
So Joe Biden now, just a couple of months ago, there was 17 people in running for the Democratic nomination. Now it's down to literally just one. There is no one else running for the Republican nomination. So he will be, again, barring some unforeseen giant change, which we know is possible. It will be in November. Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. That's what it'll come down to.
So
Okay. Who is the vice
Red Cap
president?
was the system that they were
Mike
thinking about
Pence.
having us use instead of Fairware.
Mike Pence.
Mike Pence is the vice president today. Okay, a couple more. If the president can no longer serve, who becomes president?
Mike Pence.
Mike Pence, the vice president. Okay, now this is a tricky one. If both the president and the vice president cannot serve, let's say some catastrophe happens, who's the next person in line to become president?
Secretary
The
of State.
Speaker of the House.
Secretary.
Speaker of the House, Secretary of the State. It is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Okay, so the third person in line, well, I guess second person in line. So the president is the president. If the president cannot serve, whether that's through death or there's been other times in history where if the president is going to have a surgery, they swear in temporarily, they swear in the vice president. Because if the president's going to have surgery and is going to be put, under anesthetic and unconscious, we can't be left with, not even for a second, we can't be left with an unconscious president. So they swear in the vice president as president temporarily. And this has happened a little bit. I believe it's happened a couple of times. Generally, they don't even try to make a big deal out of it, just in case our enemies are like, want to use that as a moment to attack or something like that. If those two are out of the picture, it becomes the Speaker of the House. Who is today the Speaker of the House of Representatives?
I forgot.
Nancy Pelosi.
It's Nancy Pelosi, a Democrat. So the third in line, or the second in line, the third person, I suppose, really, is the opposite party of the president and the vice president. Now, that's not the end of the world. That should be okay. We all don't have to totally hate the other party totally. And that's not always the case either. Sometimes it's the same party, but right now it's the opposite party. Now, they've planned that line of succession out. If something were to happen to her, what do we do? They've planned it out to 17 people. And I've told you my story about the Netflix show. What is that? Designated Survivor, where the it's a fictional show. I've talked about it before. They're doing the president is giving the State of the Union address where everybody in the government comes, and then somebody sets off a bomb in the Capitol building, kills everybody. The Senate, the House of Representatives, the president, the vice president, the president's cabinet, the whole Supreme Court, everybody dies in this bombing. And so the 11th person in line was being kept at a different location for this purpose, which is something they actually do, as the designated survivor. And so he became president. And it's a really interesting show. And it's constitutionally accurate. Okay, they have a whole plan for if something happens to the president and that person and that person and that person and that person, who becomes president. Hasn't always been the case, but what was the event in the 1960s that made the government make this plan? What do you think made them say, "Hey, we ought to have a plan here"?
John Kennedy was killed.
John Kennedy's assassinated. Okay, 65, I think. That 1965. They say, "Oh, we need to have a very in-depth plan for what might happen if the president is killed," because they knew the vice president would become president, and that's happened before. Lincoln was assassinated and Andrew Johnson became president. There's been assassinations before, but and presidents have died in office before, and the vice president just naturally is sworn in as president. But they said, hey, we got to have a pretty good plan here. So they came up with a very in-depth plan, which is still in place today. Let's go 2 more questions, and then we'll make it a third of the way through. I guess we're not going super far. Who is the commander-in-chief of the military?
The president.
The President of the United States is the commander-in-chief of the military. Who signs bills to become law?
The president.
The President signs bills. Okay. Congress passes them, and there's a whole big process that both houses of Congress have to pass the bill, but it doesn't become law until the President signs it. Okay. Again, checks and balances. Okay. I've got noon on my watch. I like this. I think this is good. What do you guys think?
I like it.
Yeah.
No, I like it.
I mean, we can't do this forever. There's only 100 questions, but I think it's good. Maybe we'll do this for 3 weeks. Let's go till question 66 next week, and then we'll finish it the week after that. So this is what did we get to?
Yeah, how many questions we done today?
We did 33, and the government questions end at, well, I keep going, 40. Oh no, I'm looking at the actual list. Government questions go all the way through 57, or government related questions go all the way.
Are we going to get a copy of this for ourselves to have to study over?
Sure. Yeah, here's what we'll do. Since a couple of you are new, I have anybody who's attended class before, I have your email if you've gotten my emails. If you're new, let's do this.
I didn't hear her. What did she ask?
Give me, I'll put my
what?
email.
Oh, no, I'm okay.
Okay, there's my email in the chat. mjmanfred@TIU11. Write that down. And then email me, because I don't want, we don't want to share everybody's emails.
What's the email again?
Okay, I put it in the chat there in the meeting here. MJ for Matthew, J, Manfred, MANFRED, at TIU11.org. Okay, there's my email. And I think new people, I'm thinking Tomas and Cheryl, everybody else, I have your email. So if you two, Tomas and Cheryl, if you send me an email at at that
Yeah.
email address. I will email you back, and then I'll have your email, and that'll be great. So I will email out once I get everybody's. I will email out. I'll send you. It's up to you if you want to study ahead. I'll send you the link to these flashcards. I'll send you a link to the full questions. You can go ahead and study these. Now, again, I'm not declaring anybody a U.S. citizen here, but this is, if you view this as just like the basics that every American should know, American citizen will say should know, it's a good thing to study. And do you need to know all these for the GED test? I would say so. I would say this is a pretty good starting point, And if there's something here that you want to then use as a jumping off point to go study more, that's my goal here. That's why we're doing it. So, and it's, something different, something fun. Okay, so I'll send this out. I'll share also the recording of this class if you wanted to re-listen to it, if you want, or you can share it with somebody else if you want to. That's what I like to do. I'll send out an email later this afternoon. So yeah, if Cheryl and Tomas, if you want to send me an email, that's great. I'll get back to the group later and share all these resources. And yeah,
Okay.
maybe next Thursday we can just pick up with question 34 and keep going.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Sounds great.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate it. Everybody, I hope you stay safe and stay positive in the challenges we're all facing here. But yeah, be safe, and I look forward to talking with you next week then.
You too. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
you too. Stay safe, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Be safe.
Good weekend.
Have a great
You
day.
too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.